it's Girls Camp.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Girls Camp. It is me, Haley Rawl, your host. Happy Wednesday or happy day of listening, whichever day that may be. I am so happy you're here and I cannot wait for you to listen to today's interview with our guest, Brialee Nelson. Bria's story is so impactful and so powerful on so many levels. I've been reflecting on it so much since we interviewed a couple of weeks ago. Bria was baptized into the church at age 9 without her mother knowing, and soon after she was placed into foster care and then adopted by a Mormon family in Idaho. And she has so much wisdom and insight. I found her story really illuminating to a lot of aspects of Mormonism that I hadn't quite understood in the way that she articulated them. And it's kind of helped me to reflect differently on my own experience with Mormonism and also just to learn a lot about others' experiences in Mormonism and post-Mormonism. Bria is a woman of color, and she also shares how that has shaped her experience both as a Mormon and as a post-Mormon, as a woman, a working professional in Utah. There is just so much goodness and so much learning that is in this episode. Before we dive in, a little campfire chat. I just wanted to say, I am really in the Halloween spirit this season. I don't know what it is because I was kind of resistant to it at first, but I am loving all things spooky. I actually did the recording for next week's episode today. I did the Mormon horror stories and horror lore that you all wrote in, and there are some spooky stories and also just so much interesting intersection between the Mormonism thing and the paranormal thing. And I think it's just going to be such a fun episode. I had my friend Brialee join me to help me react and break it all down. And I've just been kind of head first into the spooky Halloween vibes. I'm planning a fun Halloween party with some girlfriends. I'm just loving Halloween this season. Maybe having kids makes it exciting in a different way that I haven't felt in a long time. Or maybe, as Russell M. Nelson said, I've just been, seduced by evil spirits and doctrines of devils, I think is the scripture he quoted, referring to people who have stepped away from Mormonism. So you know what? Maybe he's right, because I'm all about the ghosts and the demons and the spooky stories, even though I still get so scared and I'm actually kind of a lightweight when it comes to scary stuff, but I like to dabble. I also wanted to quickly mention that I'm doing a little sale on the Girls Camp tote bags. I hit 10K followers on Instagram over the weekend, which numbers are kind of a funny thing on social media, but it feels like a big deal to me. It feels like a big deal that this community is thriving. It feels so exciting and comforting and validating in all the ways that there are so many of us here at Girls Camp and connecting over this shared experience, or if the experience isn't shared, just connecting over the humanity that underlies the shared experience of faith transition, faith crisis, etc. And so I am doing a little 10% off and free shipping on the Girls Camp tote bags. So if you haven't grabbed a tote yet, now is the time. That will be running until the end of the week, so jump on it. I love you all. I really, really do. I mean it when I say it. And here is this week's interview with Brialee Nelson. Enjoy. Man, we have so much to get into.
I know. It's so fun.
I can't wait. Okay. Welcome, Bria, to Girls Camp.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I cannot wait to talk with you. I was just saying, but we've been voice memoing back and forth. I feel like you have such a rich story. There are so many threads of your story that I'm really excited to get into. We are just going to talk about your story as a Mormon, a post-Mormon. You are also a woman of color.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about how that shapes your experience both as a Mormon and as a post-Mormon. You are also a model in the Utah modeling scene. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about that. Just lots to get into.
Perfect. I'm excited.
Yes, I can't wait.
Happy to be here.
let's start with your upbringing
Yeah.
and then where Mormonism came into the picture, because you came to Mormonism a little later on. You were baptized at 9,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about that. Tell me about your upbringing and kind of what got you to the point of being baptized at 9.
I lived with my birth parents. I'm adopted, so I lived with my birth parents up until the age of like 9.5 is when I was put into foster care. But about a year or two before, I was living with my mom only. She was a single mom, and I had 2 siblings, a brother and a sister, and we lived in a small town called Malad, Idaho.
Oh,
Very
Malad.
tiny
That actually
little
sounds
town.
familiar to me.
It's a little tiny town.
Yeah. Is it outside of, where is it close to in Idaho?
Oh man, I don't even know.
Yeah, because
like
I mean, you were a kid.
Preston.
Okay.
I
yeah.
lived in Preston. That's where my
Yeah.
foster home
Maybe
was.
I've driven
so-
through it before.
Yeah, headed to Pocatello.
Nice.
So we lived there with my mom as a single mom, and we had a next door neighbor that had a little girl a little bit younger than me, but I was like, friends. Like, all I want is friends. I don't know this city, or not even a city. I don't know this town. And so I started hanging out with her. Whenever I'd go over, there happened to be missionaries a lot because her dad was a bishop. And so then the conversation started being, well, have you heard about any of this? And that those little like sprinkles started coming in, and I started sitting in at family home evenings. I started going to church with them then. And then the conversation of, you've been doing this for about a year. Are you wanting to get baptized? I feel like my experience is even more unique because my mom didn't know any of it really. And it's been kind of interesting because now I'm in contact with my birth mom after about 17 years.
Wow.
We actually had that conversation of like, it's so interesting that your life turned the way it did, because I didn't even know you got baptized. And though I was
Wow.
living with my mom.
Yeah, she
this
was
is
your legal
how-
caretaker at the
Yes.
time.
She didn't even know of my baptism because it was so kind of like, oh, I'm going with them to go do this. But she didn't know like the real implications of what a baptism meant.
Yeah.
And kind of if you believe, the eternal implications of being
Yeah.
baptized. And so that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
From the jump. And now
Yeah.
looking back of my story, I felt like a lot of my experience has been fraudulent in that way of just feeling like I didn't even get a proper explanation to my loved ones. Like my dad had no idea because he wasn't even in the picture at that time. Now looking back, I'm just like,
Yeah.
there's just a kind of weird taste on it.
Absolutely.
I adore the family. I really do. I've had a really good experience with them. I haven't been able to, of course, like talk to them about that experience, but I do hold a level of respect for them. It was a really hard time in my life. I think a lot of people feel this way. Mormonism or religion in general gives you kind of a roadmap, right? Of like,
Absolutely.
okay, we all have trials, and this is your trial, but here is your reaped benefit, right?
Absolutely.
And so I felt like that was a good way for me to kind of get over a lot of the trauma that I experienced.
Yeah. Was it kind of a sense of safety, of community?
Yes.
All those things.
And definitely community. My mom was a single mom. We were living in a new town. Since I started going to church, I had friends, built-in friends, because of, activity days and things like that. And not only that, now people knew who I was. I wasn't just a little girl by herself with a single mom working countless jobs to try to keep us afloat. Now that they knew who I was, my story, they were there to support.
Yeah.
Which is
yeah. Which
a,
is
a great benefit.
absolutely.
I think
absolutely.
that's a huge benefit for a lot of people. Now that I'm out of it, I also feel like that's in some sense, sometimes a really big predatory aspect of the church, or
Yeah.
just the structure of the church, at least.
Absolutely. You were incredibly vulnerable. You were a child.
Yeah.
As you said, your mother was not involved. It's so complicated. You spoke to it really beautifully, because it can be a good thing in one sense, but you can also look back and say, well, maybe I was sold one thing and that wasn't really the case. And I'm sure we'll unpack all that came from you being a Mormon subsequently from being baptized. Sounds like it was a good thing for the time.
Yeah. And I think that's an okay thing for a lot of people. I look back on it thinking it was okay for the time. Like I think that's what I needed.
Yeah.
And I am not I'm not super old. I'm 25. You know, I still have a lot to learn and a lot of growth and a lot of unpacking that because I feel like now that I'm post-Mormon, I have just been trying to live and appreciate the life I have now. I haven't really taken the time to dwell on it.
Yeah.
Which I think is everybody's prerogative when they leave the church. They can kind of process it however they want. But I ended up getting baptized. I was with my mom then about a year. And then some family things happened, and my brother, my sister, and I were all put into foster care.
In Malad still?
In Preston, actually. Okay. Yeah. We were taken away by the state. And then that day, like literally, it felt like seconds where they were just like, grab a garbage bag, fill what you can, you're leaving.
Wow.
And we were placed a couple hours later. That night, my sister ran away. She was a little bit older. She's 4 years older than me. So she ran away and left with my brother and I. That's just who we had each other. And
is your brother younger than you?
He's 4 years younger than me.
Okay.
Yep. And my brother and I ended up staying in foster care for 4.5 years.
You were baptized at 9, and then you were put in foster care at 10.
I was baptized on my 9th birthday, put in foster care at 9.5.
Okay.
Yep.
So very soon after being baptized.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we were placed in a family that grew up LDS, but no longer practiced it.
Oh, interesting.
All of their children did, but the parents themselves did not practice. So I still continued, even though I didn't have, adults, because I was used to that. I didn't have adults that, forced me to go. I thought that I needed to go because I did make this promise. I said I would do it, and I've got to do it.
Yeah, on your own from the very beginning.
I would walk to church, and luckily there were neighbors that I started becoming friends with. They had kids my age. They became a huge resource for me in the church. I no longer had to walk. I had people that even still to this day I am incredibly close to.
Good, yeah.
So yeah, I continued the good old faith train as best as I could, even as a young girl. And it's actually cool to look at past journals and things like that because journaling is huge in the church, right? I was never great at it, but I tried because I did know, like, as somebody who was in foster care and then later to be adopted, I didn't have a long line of anything. I didn't know my medical history. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
Even though I was with my parents for so long, I still didn't know much about them. I was so young to really grasp adult concepts.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to do that for my family line. But to look back and to see, even as a young girl, wanting to be best, not better, not a good Mormon. I needed to be the best I could because I knew the implications of who I was. I was Black. I wasn't even supposed to be here, right? And at 13, that was my first dose of being told the mark of Cain, where my Black skin came from, and was I prepared to live my life as a Mormon with that knowledge?
Yeah.
And that was, I think, truthfully, that was my first shelf either breaker or at least, it shook some
weight,
things.
Some weight on the shelf.
It put some weight on there because I didn't even know up until 13. I had no idea that Black people were not allowed in the church until 1978.
Yeah.
Had no idea.
Because you were so young.
I was so young.
Yeah. And it's not like the missionaries are teaching that anyway, even to full grown adults. But as an 8, 9-year-old, you're not going to be asking those questions.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Preston is a very conservative and primarily white.
I was going to say probably very, very white.
Yeah. I had maybe 3 people that I could see that were of deeper skin tone. Like, it's primarily white. Yeah, nobody's chatting about that in, sacrament meeting.
Yeah, Sunday school,
Sunday
primary.
School, yeah, primary. And so, yeah, that was one of my first experiences. But still, I was like, I've got to continue. And I held, Beehive president, Maid president, Laurel president. I was always asked to speak in church. And now looking back, I wonder, is it to kind of showcase
diversity
and that, and I think this is maybe just a personal feeling, but Black people can be valiant, right? That valiant word, they can be that. Look, she's an example of this. You guys have seen her grow up. She's walked the walk and talked the talk from being in foster care to being adopted. I was adopted into another Mormon family, but practicing Mormon.
At what age?
14.
Okay. You were attending church all through being with your foster family,
Yeah.
and then were adopted into a practicing LDS family at 14.
And even though I was practicing, I was still a kid. I kissed boys. I was boy crazy. You know, I was a
here.
kid in a small town. That's you either like
What are you gonna do?
drugs, like start
Or you're making out with
crap
boys.
on fire, or you're making out with boys, you know? And I was like, let me do the least of evil.
Yeah.
But, you know, like still some people viewed that as I could have been viewed as promiscuous or whatever they like to throw on us young girls, right?
Yep.
But then I get adopted into a practicing Mormon family. When we had our application for being adopted, that was something that I said I wanted to be in a family that was practicing Mormon, because that's all I knew at that. You know, that was
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
what I knew.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so it was really comforting that we were able to match with a family that were practicing Mormons. My parents were interesting because I would hear all the time these really strict Mormon parents, and they weren't really that. They had some things that they were strict on, like I was the first girl. They had 4 boys of their own.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was the first girl, but I wasn't allowed to wear leggings at all. That was tight pants. We had to, in 9th grade, it was still considered junior high. We had uniforms. I wasn't allowed to wear skirts, and that was a part of the uniforms that you can wear. So I had to wear slacks, but my slacks couldn't be too tight.
Wow. So very intense on the clothing.
The clothing
rules.
was like real deal. And now, like I said, I feel like a lot of my life is like looking back.
Yeah.
I feel like it was because my parents never had a girl. So they're like, we've got to protect her.
Err on the side of
err on the
slacks.
side of- yes. And also, this is a conversation that I've had with my dad. He is now passed. He never wanted to be put in a position where anyone could say anything weird about him versus his daughter. He had seen that in a lot of foster families, because they were foster family for a long time. And he never wanted to be put in that position of allowing his daughter to be viewed a certain way, or people think that he's viewing his daughter a certain way, which I respect. And we had that conversation a couple years later, getting older. I'm in competitive or all-star cheer. I cannot wear granny panties in my uniform.
It's not
cute.
gonna work.
It doesn't cut it. I can't, it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
Having that conversation with my parents, like, I need to wear a thong. Like, this is where we're at. We're at a crossroads.
Yeah.
And we're here.
I have to.
I have to. My mom finally took me to go get my first thong.
Big deal.
Big deal. It was a big deal. And I remember, like, I still remember that feeling of, wow, they're trusting me. Like, I can wear this. And it's not going to make me bad. It's not going to make me choose bad things. And then I would wear thongs and leggings. I started working young, you know, babysitting, and then actually getting an actual job, so I was able to buy my own clothes. I remember walking past my mom with leggings and like a shorter shirt, not a crop top, but just a shirt that was showing my bum. I'm also gifted in the back. I always have been.
Showing off that booty.
Yes. I have a butt that's noticeable, and she didn't say anything, and so I was like, okay. Is this where we're at?
Yeah, I'm going to do it.
Can we do this? And they never said anything from there on. And so I think that there was like a level of trust, of course, and also just maybe them coming to the realization that A, this is not going to turn her into a hoochie mama. B, she's in a phase of life and she's doing activities that legitimately require certain undergarments. She's fine. It was a good time in our relationship to learn like they're trusting me.
Absolutely.
And I can trust them to let me make my own decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. But not without a lot of previous history of baggage around clothing items and around what those mean in a lot of layers, right? Not just the Mormon layer, as you mentioned, something I wouldn't have even thought of, but with being in a foster family and how that can maybe be an added layer for your father, as he said. So yeah, that's wonderful that you got to that point. And it's a very interesting aspect of Mormon culture generally that there's so much drama around leggings and thongs and what have you.
Over a piece of clothing. Like, yeah, they did kind of make a tizzy about the clothing. Yet the second anybody would bring up garments, what are we going to say? It's just underwear. Just leave it alone. Like, it's just my,
great
you
point.
know, like, Yeah, you're commenting on when people wear crop tops and short shorts and, and that was a huge conversation with my parents was I cheered. So we'd go to cheer camp and we'd wear like Nike Pros, right?
Yeah.
You cannot wear those around your brothers at all. Do not come home in those. You can sweats on. That was a huge thing at first. I don't know really when it became lackadaisical. Maybe when I just
got old
didn't
enough.
care. Yeah, old enough. They got old enough. I'm not quite sure. But in the beginning, that was huge. Do not wear this around your siblings, primarily my brothers. I was the only girl for a very long time. I have a huge family. I don't know if I've told you this.
No, tell me.
I have 18 siblings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you said you have the 4 brothers.
4 brothers that are their birth sons.
Okay.
And then my brother and I got adopted.
Right, they're after the 4 in
After
the
4.
lineup.
Yes. But before that, they adopted 2 boys that were older. One passed away. And one, once he became 18, he just decided to live his own life and go his own path. And then shortly, I'm thinking, I can't even remember. It was short. I think 3 months or something after we were adopted, fully adopted, we went and adopted 6 more kids.
6 at once.
6 at once. So that came with 2 boys and 4 girls.
Wow.
Yeah.
All younger than you and your brother?
Younger, yeah. So I now am the oldest at home. So they have a son who's 9 months younger than me.
Got it.
But I was the quote unquote oldest
Yes.
at home. And the girl. A lot of the times we get the responsibility, right?
Absolutely.
We have to be the...
Yes, absolutely. So you were in the home after you were adopted with the 4 older brothers,
4
you and
boys.
your brother, and then the 6 additional siblings.
Yeah.
Wow.
All of our names start with B's. So it
Oh
makes
my
it
goodness.
So my parents too. So it's just the Brady Bunch of craziness.
Yeah, that's a lot of B names.
And then we just keep getting more. When I was on my mission, my parents ended up adopting 4 more kids.
Wow.
And so it just kept, adding and adding. And now there's 18.
Wow, what a unique experience though.
Yeah.
I mean, that alone,
Yeah.
so many
And to be
elements.
the oldest of all of that
Yeah.
is also a huge, technical oldest, the oldest they've ever known.
Absolutely.
Is a lot too.
Yes. And are your adopted parents, are they white?
Yes.
And so the 4 first boys were
Are
white.
white.
Are any additional siblings?
Black. Yeah.
Got it.
So the 6 that we adopted at once, right after us, they're all black.
And were they from the same family?
They're all siblings.
Got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So that was a good thing that my parents did. They really tried to adopt sibling groups. So my brother and I, of course, the 6 and then the 4, they're all
Yeah.
siblings.
And I can imagine nice to have siblings that are black.
Yeah. Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. That was really comforting, of course. Then you grow up and you realize that there's definitely different experiences that you're having in your family, whether it's cognizant to your parents or not. There is different experiences that you're going to be going through.
Different experiences. Can you explain that more?
Yeah, just like the way of life. There was an experience that my brothers and I had. We used to live by a gas station. We went one night, my parents would give us their debit card, and all we would need to do is go pick up Diet Cokes for them. But we would be able to get a snack, of course, right?
Cute.
Since we did the do.
Yeah.
We got
That
a
was your reward.
Yeah, we got the reward. There was one night, my brothers, of course, black, us 3 black. We would go in together, and then my 2 other brothers we were all kind of not the same age, but old enough. So we would all kind of go together. But the 2 white brothers would be together, and then us 3 would be together. Probably just we didn't do it on it was never purposeful, I don't think. It was just either the conversation that we were having or whatever. We would all arrive together, but kind of split off, right? And we remember the clerk, or I don't know what you would call gas station guy. Are you guys going to be paying for that? And just feeling absolute shock and scare, And then my white brothers coming around. And this was one of my first times that I knew I would be safe with my brothers. We never were put in an experience where we weren't safe. But my brother, who's a little bit younger than me, was like, these are my siblings. We're getting stuff for our parents.
And we're going to pay.
Here's the card. Well, then it became an issue of, that's not your card. That's somebody else's card. So the cops were called. We're sit down on
wow.
as kids, young teenagers, sit on the curb type of deal and wait until our parents at like 1 a.m. to come pick us up, you know? And so my white siblings would never have to have that lens on them, right? Of like, you're going to pay for that, right?
Is this your card?
Yes.
Yeah.
But we had that. And I think that's something that a lot of parents don't, it's not in the forefront of their mind when they adopt interracial.
Yeah. And it seems like in that experience, and I'm curious if this came into play with church experiences as well, where you're seeing almost more vividly the contrast maybe in how white siblings and black siblings are being treated within your very own family.
Absolutely. Especially in the church. I feel like callings were given to certain kids and responsibilities were given to certain kids and not the others. And some of my siblings just flat out were just like, I'm not interested in this stuff. I don't know why I'm here or have to be here other than my mom said, you know, type of deal, which that's everybody has their own journey for sure. But I also feel like there could have been a lot more equality in realizing that everybody has something to offer. And just because this kid looks a certain way, dresses a certain way, doesn't mean he can't be at that same level that you're holding these other kids to. And it's not even just my like siblings against siblings, just kids against kids, like my siblings against other kids. Like, why are they viewed as more valiant or trustworthy, you know?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I saw that a lot, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine, especially, when you have such a large, almost focus group of, okay, how are we all treated and how are we treated the same? How are we treated differently? I want to back up a little bit. You talked about learning about the mark of Cain when you were 13. Yeah. So when you were 9 and you got baptized, up from, let's say, 9 to 13, were you, again, you were very young, but were you aware at all of any problematic history, of any problematic doctrine as it relates to race?
I didn't even know about polygamy.
Really?
I didn't know about polygamy. I was not taught that.
Yeah.
It
makes sense.
The Mormon missionaries never taught that. Yeah, so I didn't know about polygamy. I feel personally, was given a very watered, whitewashed, rundown version of what happened. Even talking about how Joseph Smith was like ran out of multiple places was not even very focused on. It was just like, here is the doctrine. You're going to live together with your family forever if you get baptized. Then later, if you get sealed, you go on a mission and you do what you need to do.
Keep the commandments,
and the covenants, and endure to the end.
Yeah.
I really had to do a lot of my own diving in and learning. When I first heard about the mark of Cain, I was like, what is that? Like, it really shook me. I'm not going to lie. It really shook me because I was like, then are they being bad by having me a part of their church? Because I didn't see anybody else who was black in my ward stake. No one, you know? So I'm like, okay, are they doing the wrong thing or am I doing the wrong thing by being a part of the church?
So you felt like they were doing a wrong thing by having you, by even allowing you?
Yes,
is that what you mean? Oh, wow.
Because I was like, okay, well, if this is the case, then why have they changed their mind? That was a huge thing for me. It's like, so we're just allowed to change our minds whenever we want. And then learning more and more about the church, we're like, they're just changing their minds whenever they want. Revelation, right? But changing their minds about it. I started going into a lot of like Gordon B. Hinckley stuff and Boyd K. Packer stuff and their stance on black people in the church before, you know, the switch and stuff like that. And it's like, they really didn't want us here.
Yeah.
Why are we here now?
They said it quite explicitly.
Quite explicitly.
Yes.
Even, you know, the current prophet has said stuff, especially about interracial mixings.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Marriages, partnerships. Yeah.
So
So you were learning this stuff of your own accord? Were you doing the research or was any of this, how did you find out? How did you even know to look?
A lot of it was asking other people, especially people who I was always told that if you looked into anything, it was anti-Mormon rhetoric, right? And so I just would ask people questions and see what their answers were. And there were some people, I remember girls camp, which is so fun. There was a really trusted leader. I love her so much. She was truthfully one of the only people, Sister Hardwood.
Shout out Sister Hardwood.
I love her. She's amazing. She was like the only person who would give it to me straight and be like, you know what? There was some sucky things that happened on our end. The Mormon Meadow Massacre, things like that. And we have to do our best not to forget those things, because every single person kept telling us, just leave it in the past, right? But she was one person who was like, we've got to acknowledge that our history comes from this and do our best to not necessarily rewrite it, but show that there were mistakes made.
To acknowledge it.
Yeah, there were mistakes made, and this is what we're doing going forward. We apologize or whatever, how we can go forward. That was the first time where I was like, okay, we may have done something wrong in the church, but this sister is acknowledging it, and that's how I want to live my Mormon life, like if somebody comes up to me, I'm just walking down the street and they're like, hey, are you Mormon? Yeah. Do you know that all this stuff happened? I do. And me and my home, we acknowledge it, and this is what we're doing to go forward.
Absolutely.
I felt like that was such a beautiful way.
Absolutely.
Of acknowledging the past and not brushing it away.
Yeah, that's really powerful, because I think the inclination for white people generally, for me as a white person, is often it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's wrong, but it doesn't affect you in the same way that it affects people of color. So it's very easy to want to say, oh, well, no, that wasn't a big deal, right? Or we've moved on from that. They do the same thing with polygamy, but I feel like with issues of race, it's even more so that way. Yeah. So to have a person in your life saying, no, this happened, and it's important that we recognize it happened, because that's important. Yeah. We can't also just pretend it didn't happen. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
From a woman in the church to say that was also, I really respected that.
I bet.
And so that's kind of how I continued, going through high school, of just like, yeah, I'm Mormon, and I know that some things have been bad. And I know that people think that our church is weird, or we call unique, because we are the only ones that we have the fullness of the church, right? We have the fullness of the gospel. We are unique. Mm-hmm. We are weird than what you're used to. That's what we would say, right? Like, we know we're weird. We know we're different. And we accept that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I just kind of
made sense of it.
Yeah.
Did you see at that point, as you're kind of discovering these things and reading what prophets have said, learning about the mark of Cain, sounds like learning about the priesthood ban that was only reversed in 1978, which is crazy. Were you seeing a disconnect in how the church had addressed these issues versus this sister in your ward?
Yeah. I feel like when I started, I think my junior year of seminary, that's when I kind of saw the shift of, man, there are so many members having to defend this church. Why is the church not doing more to like fix its issues? People their families are splitting up because they're having to like go to bat for a church that, again, I didn't really feel like was going to bat for them as members. And so that's kind of where I started seeing a lot of change. And though I feel like at my high school especially, I was truthfully just doing the dance. It was hard for me to have a really good spiritual experience unless somebody was talking to me about their vulnerability. Like, unless they were being vulnerable. If I was hearing something over the pulpit, I wasn't interested.
It wasn't really doing it for you.
It wasn't resonating with me. When people would share their own experiences of how they saw Jesus in their life, that was different. I felt their sincerity because of the connection that they had with Jesus Christ. I really tried to just do the dance that everybody around me was doing. And then it comes to going on my mission. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go on my mission. And this is where it becomes a missionary experience for me, because I started dating a boy who grew up in the church, has a very active family, lines of active family.
A lot of Mormon heritage. He didn't want to be a part of the church. And that was scary for me, because I was told, I've got to get married in the temple, dude. I've got to do all these things so that I can live with my family forever. And if you're not going to be a part of that,
this isn't going anywhere. And so I was like, man, I'm going to go on my mission and I'm going to show him how faithful I can be so that when I come home, he's going to be working on himself. I've worked on myself and sacrificed, and we're going to be able to do the dang thing, right?
Yeah. So you are now wanting to be the missionary for him, which, as you're saying, is a very interesting dynamic because you're first generation convert.
Yeah.
He has years of Mormon heritage, and you're trying now to be the person that can bring him back into the fold.
Yeah.
Before we jump into the mission, I wanted to talk quickly about, you mentioned this dynamic growing up in the church in high school, in your high school years, being in positions of leadership, speaking, bearing your testimony, the whole thing. Yeah. You said something about wanting to be not good, not better, but the best. I would love to hear more about that, especially in light of what you said about feeling like you didn't necessarily feel a very deep, maybe, connection in all the ways with Mormon theology and doctrine. What was driving you to be the best Mormon? What was even driving you to go on your mission and to, get your boyfriend back in the church?
Yeah. So I think it comes down to, I am incredibly aware of how people perceive me. Coming from a single mom, from somebody who I dealt with my sister going and kind of creating the same cycle that my mom did, I was going to be damned if somebody viewed me that way. And so I had two polar opposites in my life, right? I had this addict and single mom, loss of a family on one side, right? Then I had this you've got to be the best. You've got to be perfect so that you can get to heaven. Just total opposites, right? And I was like, I'm definitely not going to do that. I told myself, and I was going to stick to it, I was never going to allow myself to be where my mom and my sister were. And so I was like, well, girl, you got one other option.
Yeah.
Because those are the only two examples I've ever seen in my life. Was the church and was total destruction.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, we're going to do our darnest to make sure that people know that they will never have to worry about you being like that. The thing was, I wasn't super into it, as in I didn't read my scriptures all the time. Never did that. Could care less about family home evening. I liked being with my siblings and my parents. That was good. And I loved getting together, but I didn't really care about the doctrine of it. I just wanted to be together and I wanted to have a good time. And going to church allowed that. I could be with friends. Stake dances, seminary was a time that I knew that majority of people around me had the same end goal. We knew what was going to be there for us if we endured to the end, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
At school, that's not necessarily the case, but you go to that seminary building, whole different ball game.
Yep.
And so I just felt that I was getting really good at playing the game of you got to do whatever you can to be perceived a certain way.
You articulated that so powerfully. It sounds like you saw two options, and the only way to have a family, to have the eternity, to have all these things that you wanted was Mormonism. That was the only path there.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that you would see it that way, especially knowing that you came to the church very young and how much your life was shaped by that. And that sounds like a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
That sounds like a ton of pressure on so many levels and a really hard spot to be in as a young person who's just figuring themselves out and wanting, I can imagine, to explore, as you were saying with, I want to wear a thong. I want to kiss a boy. But then you're feeling this immense pressure. It sounds like a much higher level of pressure because of those added layers of your story.
Yeah. When I was taken away, I had so much anger towards my mom. Up until my son was born, honestly, I felt so much anger. I've went 17 plus years without talking to her. Knew where she was, knew that I can contact her at any time, refused because I had so much anger. Because when I was taken away, I felt such a lack of love. And so I felt like all these formative years, I'd been searching to find love and acceptance, and an acceptance in a way of I know with what I'm doing, they will love me. So again, it goes back to me kind of moving my chess player certain ways, right? So that I know, like, if I do this, it's going to show that I am faithful and I'm going to look faithful in their eyes if I do it this way.
And that will earn me their love.
It will earn me their love. And it's taken me a lot of years, especially now being post-Mormon, it's taken me a lot of years to like acknowledge that I did those things. I was scared that I was never going to be loved because I did know that my mom loved me. I did. I think the betrayal of her actions kind of led me to a place where I was like, I don't think I'll ever feel love again. And so I have to make sure that I do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And by doing these things, I'm going to feel loved.
Yeah. Wow. So powerful. And I think it speaks to what I find really, really devastating in a lot of ways about Mormonism generally is that people can argue about this, but I think the theology of Mormon love, I don't find unconditional.
Right.
And it sounds like you were experiencing that in a very real way.
Yeah.
And not only feeling like maybe the love of God or getting the rewards of love of God, but also you feel that from your community and from your society is that in order to be safe and to be loved, there are specific ways that I have to behave.
Yes.
And the stakes were incredibly high for you in a way that many of us won't understand because of what you expressed, with your mother. That's so intense.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this or tell me what comes up for you with this, but you were talking about when you joined the church as a 9-year-old, there was this sense of safety and the sense of community, which, as we've said, the church can absolutely do that and does do that in a lot of ways. But I wonder if that's the cost of that safety and that community is what you just described.
Absolutely. And I believe that for every member. Like, you know that you have to walk a certain line to receive that. Just think about people who become inactive. How often are you checking on them other than to benefit you?
Yep.
What's the cost of the love?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. That's incredibly poignant. And I think just a really, really important lens, as you were saying, a lens that I think you uniquely have to show something that I think speaks to something that happens generally in the church, but that you experienced in a much more intense, again, high stakes way. Let's go back to the mission era.
Yeah.
So you're dating your now husband, spoiler alert.
Yeah. Ended up getting married.
You ended up getting married to him, which is lovely.
Yes.
You decide to go on a mission. Do you feel like going on a mission was part of that for you? Was it, this is what I need to do to be a good Mormon? What motivated you to get on your mission? Was it mostly to help your then husband? Let's talk more about what got you on the mission and then what your mission was like.
Yeah. So definitely to help my now husband, I wanted to prove to him, like, I can sacrifice these 18 months with you, the person who I truly love so much, to show you that this is what we need in our life. But also, I will never, ever forget how proud my parents were of me. And I have messed up a lot. I was not good at school. I had a lot of trauma that dwelled into school. I was also, again, feeling so much that I was just playing the part, that when I did this huge thing of sacrificing 18 months, my parents were so proud of me. And there's that love, right? Like, I did this chess piece and they showed me love. They showed me how proud they were. And I've always wanted my parents to be proud of me. I think every child wants their parents to be proud of.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Doing that was a huge growth in mine and my parents' relationship. I also really struggled with the fact that I was adopted. Just like, I'm old enough to know who my parents are. And now I have these new ones and I have to, that there was always kind of this, not necessarily headbutt, but there was just this like cartilage in between, right? Like there was just a little something always there between my parents and I. And so, I just felt really proud. And so those two things were like, hey, you're doing this. You're going in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, where'd you go?
I served in Micronesia.
Oh, wow.
Scary mission.
You're the first person I've ever met that served in Micronesia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very intense. I was not prepared for how much trauma would come up on my mission, seeing people live in poverty, more than poverty, like truthfully third world as poverty can be, you know, like with zero resources type of living. Yeah, I struggled a lot on my mission. It also gave me the opportunity to kind of, whenever I did see a glimmer, to make sure to write that down and make sure to send that dispenser of like, this sucks out here. This is the worst experience of my life.
Yeah.
In a way, it just like felt like the worst thing in the world. But
yeah,
man, this happened.
This miracle,
man, you know, like, and seeing him respond back, just like, I'm so proud of you. And you inspire me every day. Like, who doesn't want to hear that, eh?
Absolutely.
I'm a woman.
Yeah.
Like we naturally, every person loves to hear that. Also just, again, I am sacrificing for you, Spencer. I'm going through all of these health troubles and all, you know, my mental health troubles so that we can be together forever type of thing.
Yeah. Like proving yourself almost. Oh, that's another, I've never heard a mission spoken about that way. Thank you. I think there's so much about missions that we fail to articulate, which is young people looking for validation, looking for, you know, being that age is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. You're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life. You're trying to figure out if you want to study and what you want to study. And I see my mission in a similar way to what you described, almost as a way to just like, everyone's going to support me on this and I'm going to get a lot of positive attention. Yeah. Quite frankly.
Yeah. Especially being a woman.
Being a woman doing it. And that seems, it's crazy because I've actually been reflecting on this personally and I've never talked to anybody about it in this way, but really coming to terms with the fact, I think I went on a mission in large part because it gave me a lot of positive attention.
Yeah.
And people thought I was awesome for doing it. And people would say, I'm sure you got this too, you'll be an amazing missionary. You're going to do such wonderful things. Wow, the people of Micronesia are so lucky to have you. Like you said, who doesn't want to hear that? Yeah. But that's really problematic when you look at what a mission actually is, what it actually can do to people. Yeah. As you mentioned, with this added layer of trauma, when you're seeing people in these circumstances with lack of resources, it's something that you want to do for that reason. But when push comes to shove, missions can be hellish.
Yeah. Yeah.
And absolutely. They can have really long-term impacts on your physical health and your mental health. Yeah. And as you said, you had a lot of mental and physical health problems, right?
Yeah. Not only, you know, the physical of myself and the mental of myself, but the people who I was teaching, you know, like they have now long impact of that because either I taught them and we ended up not baptizing them. So now they're on record. So now people are always going to go back to them, or they have been baptized. And if they don't currently go, they're always going to be part of that record. And so I struggled a lot because when I came home, I just felt like, I hate to bring up that word again, but like I was a fraud on my mission because I realized what missions really were. I didn't really know, other than my dad, like I didn't know anybody truthfully to me who can explain to me their mission. And he served in the Philippines, which is very close to Micronesia. So it was fun to be able to have that like experience together. But a lot of the people there, this may be the first time they ever hear of anything like this. I'm like, oh, I have this like God complex that I know what you need to know. So you need to listen to me. Yeah. I'm going to teach you. You're going to get baptized so that you can have it. If I wasn't there, you wouldn't have. That kind of feeling just every night made me feel so gross. So gross. And then coming home, peeling back the layers of my mission, I was just like, man, this makes me feel caca.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
It just makes me feel so gross that I thought I was just so good and holy that I had to go across several oceans. You know, I traveled for like 27 hours to go teach these people so that they can be saved.
Yes. And you realize when you're actually in that situation, this is not what they actually need.
No.
They need actual resources.
And
exactly. You mentioned this word earlier about when you got baptized at 9, it feels predatory. Yeah. It feels like these people are really vulnerable.
Yes.
And they're vulnerable to certain messaging.
Yeah.
It can feel, you kind of sense that nature of it, of why are we seeking out the most vulnerable people and putting them as numbers on our records, when really with the amount of money and resources that the church has, with the amount of time and energy of missionaries willing to give, a lot of actual good.
Yeah.
a lot of actual
because
good could
I
be done.
started thinking back to my baptism and my conversion to the church. Did they seek me out because I had been going over to this neighbor's house? I had been, of course, sharing with them like, oh, I don't have a dad my dad doesn't live with me and we've moved all these times.
My mom has to work a lot.
Yes. Yeah. Like sharing these very vulnerable things about me. Was that like just feeding for them? Mm-hmm. And that is like really heartbreaking to me, actually, because I did believe the things that they were teaching me for so long. Mm-hmm. And to come out of the realization, I'm like, shit, I taught that to other people. Very painful.
Very painful and very, I just want to say, commendable to have that level of, reflection, and that level of unpacking is just, like you said, so painful. So to be willing to do it, I find deeply, deeply admirable, because that's an intense deconstruction on many levels. Again, that a lot of people, I've deconstructed, I'm deconstructing, but there's less levels of that trauma and intensity. And I think that that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Really hard to do.
I think of, utilizing therapy and letting myself sit where I am and sit where I was, like going back to that has allowed those opportunities for me, because at first I was very standoffish to doing any of the work.
Yeah.
And it just, a lot of the times, I think as we get older, we realize that trauma really does build up in your body, and it causes a lot of small scenarios to become very big. Mm-hmm. And I was tired of my life always feeling like a soap opera. Like, why does everything have to be so intense all the time? And so doing the work, sucks, not fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it's work. It is what it is. But it was so necessary for me to realize, like, why am I having these feelings? Why is this feeling so overwhelming all the time? Why do I get a visceral reaction when I step into a church now? Going through the ebbs and flows of that deconstruction, I think, is the only thing that has truly helped me
absolutely
get to the place
absolutely
where I can at least be.
Yes. And I think that's such a fantastic point. I've been thinking about this a lot, because some dumbass commented on one of my reels, and he was like, well, I'm gay and I've left the church and I'm fine, leave it alone, get a pet. And I've been thinking, and I don't mean to project this on this person, maybe this individual is actually fine, but in my mind, there's a reckoning that must happen around this stuff.
Yeah.
It's harder to do the shit you got to do to get through to the place you've just described than it is to be like, yeah, I left the church, but whatever, like I'm fine. Yeah. And I always admire people willing to do that work, because I'm very much in the stage of like needing to even do more. So it is always very inspiring to me to hear.
It's so easy to be like, I served a mission, I baptized XYZ 1, 2, 3, came home, got married in the temple, raising my family, going to church every Sunday. That is so easy. You want to know why? Because there's structure. There is a roadmap for you. When you don't have that roadmap, you have to figure shit out by yourself. And it's like, of course it would be easy to choose the path that's already been
absolutely
paved, So
absolutely.
Again, going back to admiring that work, I am the same way. Like when I see people actually acknowledging things from the past or their own deconstruction, I'm like, wow, you are very strong, because it's not easy to do those things.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's hard. Okay, let's fast forward a little bit. I always say this, but I'm like, damn, we could talk forever. Let's fast forward to you get home from your mission. I know you married your husband. Mm-hmm. Did you have a temple marriage? What was that like, getting married to your husband? And then leading up to why you decided to leave.
Yeah. I got home in October and we were married February 3rd. October 17th, I was married February 3rd. Very quick. Mm-hmm. All the speculations, right? And that's not even very quick to some, but it was pretty quick, it was pretty quick.
Yeah.
In a way, I would never not marry my husband, but in a way I was just like, okay, this is the natural progression. I sacrificed. I did this. I love you and I want to be together forever. Yeah. So let's get married. So yeah, we did have a temple marriage. When I think of people getting married and they're like at the end of the altar, right? I never think of that as like super, I don't know if the word is religious, but like ritualistic. It just is like, oh, that's just what you do. I don't know. In my brain, it just compartmentalizes that way. But kneeling across the altar felt very ritualistic. And I was like, this is kind of creepy. And I told Spencer that, like, when we were done with everything, I told him, I was like, that was really, for us, like, to do that, who we are, it was very weird. Like, that's not how I envisioned our marriage.
Yeah, it didn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It didn't fit us.
You described that well.
Yeah. And so there was a very big sense, and there still is, of disappointment. My big time, who I was back then. Because, we can get remarried, right? We can do a ceremony and do all that. But that wasn't our love then.
That's a great
when
point.
We were young and so ready for each other. And it just wasn't what I wanted.
Absolutely.
It's carried a lot of disappointment throughout the years.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah, sure. For the time, we were doing what we had to do, but it doesn't mean that for the time, we could have had much better, and we deserved much better.
Yeah.
We deserved something that felt right and that we had more control over. Yeah, I feel so similarly.
I wish that there was ever that option. It didn't seem like there was an option.
Not at all.
You get married in the temple.
Especially with what you went through to get there.
Yeah. Like, this is your whole life, you doing what you thought needed to be done is all up until to this moment. You know, you have repented. You've done all of the stepping stones to get there. You're here and you've got to do it. And then when I was there, it still wasn't right.
Yeah. And you're promised that this is the thing, this is everything. And then to give so much of your life, so much of yourself, and then to get there and be like, well, damn.
Yeah.
This wasn't quite it.
This didn't hit as I thought it was going to.
Absolutely. I can relate so much to that. How long was it from being married until you stepped away from the church? And tell me about how you said your shelf started getting weight on it at 13, very young.
Yeah.
So what led you, were you still building up your shelf this whole time? And what led you to ultimately stepping away from the church?
A lot of people say, like, Idaho and Utah Mormons are very similar. I was in Boise, Idaho at the time. I was like, okay, well, we had to move to Utah because my husband's work, which was in 2018. I was, like, pretty partial. I didn't really care. I was just, like, glad we can be our own family because our families were there. And this was really just, like, the try of the times, right? We're 1 year into our marriage. We made it that 1 year, which everybody says is so hard. But we made it that 1 year. We're going to move, really become our own family, right? And we moved to Utah, which is supposed to be the pinnacle of... It is the pinnacle of Mormon. It's not supposed to be. It is. And we come here and... I get a really heavy dose of what it's like to be, what are the standards and what you should be upholding as a member in Utah. I felt more lonely, I think, than I ever had. I didn't have friends here, which I got. I understood that I didn't have friends. But wherever I've been in the church, I've always been able to make friends pretty easily, having that structure of the church. I remember, and I sent you this screenshot of what I had posted on Facebook of just... after trying and trying to fit into the Utah mold or to be, again, that good Mormon, I just wasn't fitting. And I kept showing up. I did. I tried to show up. I would drag Spencer. I love him. Love you, babe. I would drag him to church. I will tie your tie in the car or in the parking lot if I have to. We have to go to church type of thing. Because I was still trying so hard. I was in this new space. This is the Mecca. I got to be able to find friends. I've got to, find my community. And what's the best way to do that? By joining them, right?
Yep. Go to church.
Join them.
Yep.
So I was really trying. And then I kept having bad experience after bad experience. And what I shared with you of just feeling so invisible, even though I was in a room where I was the only person who looked like me.
Yeah.
Like how... It was so painful.
Yeah, tell that story.
I kept attending this ward, and it was the ward that we were supposed to be in, and I would do my best to reach out to people, like shake their hand when I'd see them or talk to them, and I sat down, and this was just like a singular experience, but there was a lady who kept saying, is there any new members here? And I would raise my hand, and other people would raise their hand, and they would go through welcoming them and telling people to, communion with them, make a community. And every time I would raise my hand after everyone would go, okay, we're on to the lesson. And having experiences like that where I'm like, I am literally raising my hand. I'm in front row so that everybody could notice me.
And they were ignoring it.
Ignoring me.
Literally flat out ignoring it.
Flat out ignoring me. Somebody who I'm friends with now, who has also left the church, was in that ward. And she like, her validation to me was something that was so tangible, because I thought, am I crazy? Am I just sitting here, woe is me, that nobody has noticed me? And she goes, no, I was there with my own eyes, multiple weeks, you going to church and them just brushing over you. Again, the only person of color in the stake, let alone the ward, the small room of Relief Society, and nobody focusing on me or acknowledging me in the slightest. And that was really painful. And I felt like that was a common theme of my experience as I was trying to be that's the word I want to use, valiant member of the Mormon society here in Utah. And I had posted it about my experience on Facebook, and it went pretty viral. For the time, I should say viral. It got over 50, or I think it was 70,000 shares, 50,000 comments.
That's viral for right now.
Yeah. Like it was a lot. And I was so shocked at how many people were sharing it and saying how similar their experience was, because I felt so alone. And maybe because I was the only person of color in the ward at the time. So frustrating how many people were just like, oh, that doesn't happen. That's just Utah. You have to move out of Utah. And I was like, I just moved here, bro.
Yeah.
Just
Also,
moved my life.
I can't.
I just can't leave.
Yeah. My husband works here.
Yes. Like that was really frustrating. And I felt very invalidated until I was able to speak to this other girl who was a part of the ward. I should say she didn't tell me until like 2 years later. So I was living with that, like,
is this just me?
Is this just me? It must just be, because that's what they're saying, right? This is just you. This is such a singular experience.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen anymore.
Well, and with the added element of being the only person of color, it's like, how are you not going to see that there's a connection to that?
Yeah.
In a way that maybe other people, because they're not of color, who are there, are going to be unwilling to validate for you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was sad because not only the bishop, but other people on the Facebook told me that I should probably check out a Polynesian ward.
You're kidding me.
If I wanted to have that community, I should look into going to a Polynesian ward. Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Insane, actually. Yeah.
That's actual insanity.
I think that's when my husband was like, we're done.
Yeah. Excuse me?
Yeah. That somebody would just be like, well, if you're not feeling comfortable here, you can try a poly ward. Yeah.
You're like, well, I'm not Polynesian.
I'm not Polynesian. Maybe I will, though, because
probably would be better.
Yeah, it's like they're seeming a lot better option here.
Yeah.
But the fact, like, I'm not Polynesian.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't know that because you didn't get the time to know me.
And for that to be the response instead of, damn,
I'm so sorry.
We got to be better.
Yeah, we need to fix our inclusion.
Yes. Instead, like, well, you should probably just try something else.
Yeah.
Because this isn't really our fault anyway.
Yeah.
Oof, that is nasty.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry.
And in that, like, Facebook post, and I had shared this with you, of just the fact that I was still doing all I could to protect the peace of Mormons.
Yeah,
right?
you can see it all over your post.
Yeah. I know this isn't everyone. I'm not saying this is all Utah. Relax,
But this is my experience.
Yes.
But just my experience.
Yes, just my experience. I'm not speaking to anybody else. I was doing a lot to try to protect the feelings of others. And
the church itself.
In the church itself.
Yeah. Was that kind of your final straw, would you say? That you just decided this isn't worth...
Yeah, I didn't attend church after that.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. How has it been for you with all that we've discussed? How has it been for you stepping away? I know you've spoken to lots of work, therapy, and deconstructing. Where would you say you're at now with having left?
That is a great question. I don't have a roadmap anymore. I don't have a structure. I don't know what's going to happen to me once I die. And so this that I have now is so much more special to me. My son is so special to me. And even without the church, I know I will see him again. I know that he is fully meant to be my husband and my child. He's a miracle. He's a miracle.
Yeah.
The ropes that we jumped to be able to get him into our lives, he is a miracle. That alone has shown me no matter what God what Jesus, what church, what religion he is meant to be ours. And the life that we get to live now is the only thing I know that I have now. And I'm going to relish in it. It has been so special to me. And I feel like it's made life seem so much more special, because when I was in the church, it was like, no, don't worry about maybe what you miss out on here, right? Because you got eternity to go.
Yep.
You know, so don't worry, you got this. Now it's like, I don't know what I have, but I do know what I have here.
Yeah.
And now.
Yeah.
And it's really
and so you
special
can
to me.
be in that presence. So beautiful.
It's allowed me to
Amen
be
and
very
amen.
Present.
Yeah. So beautifully said. I wonder about this feeling you spoke to of so much of your Mormon experience being about seeking validation, seeking love. And now that you've stepped away from that, what it has felt like, because I can imagine in one way it might be difficult because you might not have the same validation you were getting before when you were doing the dance. What has that been like?
I think for a couple years after being post-Mormon, I really tried to still protect Mormon feelings. And I also tried to do like, I'm not gonna, just because I left the church doesn't mean I'm gonna smoke and do drugs and drink. And, you know, I always tried to like perpetuate that. Now I'm just like, I'm gonna choose to do what I do and live how I live. And I didn't feel a lot of protection in the church, by the church, I should say. I didn't feel a lot of protection by the church. So why do I need to protect it? Especially since I don't associate with it anymore.
Yep. Snaps to that.
And so I'm just kind of, I don't think of it. I don't know. I really don't, unless I'm like around family, and I try to be respectful. I try to have really open conversations. One thing I really, really struggled with in the church, and I've always struggled with the church, I was never able to live through my own intuition, because I was always told that it was the Holy Ghost, or, you know, that's Jesus working through you. And now I know that I am pretty darn cool. I'm very smart. I have a lot of value, and we don't have a roadmap, but we do have a lot of peace knowing that we chose to be where we're at.
I love that. It's such a joy. It's such a gift to live your life on your own terms. I could talk forever. I want to ask you one last question, which is, as a woman of color now, post-Mormon in Utah, maybe some of the modeling work you do comes into this, because I know you're very involved community-wise by doing modeling for a lot of Utah companies. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that experience specifically, and just being a person of color now as a post-Mormon. And I will say, me now being in the post-Mormon space, I've done this podcast for 8 months now, and you're the first person of color I've interviewed, which is a massive failure, to be frank, on my part. I have realized it's a massive blind spot for me, even in my work, is intersectionality, especially with people of color. And it's something that I'm determined to do better at, but I have failed to do so far. I also sense sometimes, myself included, post-Mormons feel very enlightened, and they still have a lot to unpack around race, around sexism, around all the things. So that was just a whole long spiel, but I just am curious if anything comes up for you around any of that.
I think I'm going to say something that's a little spicy.
Do it, please.
But it's something that I've noticed, especially in the wake of TikTok, like all these social medias, right? TikTok, podcasts in general. I think being post-Mormon gives, especially white people, a sense of like, something bad has happened to me, and now I get to share with you my martyrdom or whatever, you know? And I think that is something that's underlining. I don't think a lot of people are cognizant of that, but I do think it's an underlying, like, yeah, we get it. You're white. You've been oppressed. I don't know. I would never use that word, but that's what people have said.
Yeah.
And if that's how you want to acknowledge it, then acknowledge it. But I think that being Black in Utah, it shows you how much so you are on the back front of people's minds, unless somebody calls you out. Height of, what is the word? Black Lives Matter movement, right? I started getting into the modeling scene. I was a makeup artist previously. So I started doing modeling, and people were like, well, just reach out to companies. And I reached out to one company in the 6.5 years. One company I reached out to, they responded back to me saying, hey, we're so sorry. You're just not really the look we're going for. Meanwhile, the only look is white, right? White, predominantly blonde.
Probably skinny.
Yeah. Skinny. Sometimes they'd throw a brunette in there, but still white. I'm like, cool. Never doing that again. Not going to reach out to any companies because I don't like that feeling.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And then Black Lives Matter hits, right? The next Monday, hey, Brialee, we'd love to work with you. Oh my gosh.
Same company?
Same company. Still have the DM. We'd love to work with you. Let's get together. What's your rate? The gall and gumption, the gasp I gave when I saw that DM come through, I was like, you've got to be effing kidding me.
Yeah.
You just told me that I was not what you wanted.
The look
For your company. Yet now you've realized,
yeah,
we got to scurry.
shit.
We got to scurry. We don't have any diversity. Now you want to work with me. Wrong. Bye. Never.
Icky.
Never.
Yep, so icky.
It did become a theme because a lot of companies out of the woodworks that never worked with people of color and any general, Hispanic, Indigenous, nothing. Polynesian, zero. It became like a trend, right? I think everybody saw that, not just in Utah, but in the United States media. In a sense, did I capitalize on that? Yeah.
Good.
I have never seen somebody who looks like me do this.
Absolutely.
I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and get paid for it and get paid more, quite frankly.
Good.
Like, if you're not going to use diversity and then now all of a sudden you need it, you're going to pay my rate and then some.
Yes.
And that is just because there was never acknowledgement of people who look like me. I also had a lot of, what is the word? Like mentors saying, you know, you are a person of color in Utah. You need to be being paid enough.
Yeah, good.
And because at first I was like, I don't even know what to do. You know, this is so new to me. And luckily with the mentorship that I had, they're like, you need to know your worth and then some.
Good.
And that gave me a really big backbone because I had always kind of let people walk over me when it came to that. I think a lot of biracial people feel too black for the white people and too white for black people. It also became my look, right? My hair is straight curled, straight ends. I used to have naturally curly hair. I did have health issues that changed my hair. But yeah, I became the I'm not Mormon, but white look that they were looking for because I was told I wasn't what they were looking for.
Yeah.
You know, and so I started to see myself for sure morph into the Utah look, right? And we do have one.
Yeah.
That's why companies from all over the United States countries send their product here to be shot because they want a certain look. Yeah. And I had companies ask me if I could straighten my hair, like not have it as curly.
Yeah.
You know, they wanted it curled a certain way, or they would hire a hairstylist so that they can do my hair. I had a lot of really bad experiences with that. I had a lot of hate for myself for that. Why couldn't I have my hair curled and still feel beautiful? Or why did my curls have to look a certain way to be viewed as something that you would want to use?
Yeah.
And that was really painful. Now I have a look that I like, and it's because I like it. I do my hair the way I want because I like it that way. Hair is a huge thing in Black culture, of course, as everybody knows. I grew up with a white mom, 2 white moms to be exact. I never, up until a certain age, I never had my hair in braids. I never did that type of stuff. And so I can't really speak on the true experience of Black models in Utah fully because of my kind of interesting dynamic. But yeah, I've had times where companies have hired makeup artists to do my makeup, and all they've had is a shade 2 tones darker than yours. And it's really painful when you are sitting in front of a camera and you see yourself and you're like, it wasn't me in the beginning, and it's really not me.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm already having to put a mask on to appease this company, and now I look like a clown.
Yeah, there's like a literal mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how much they want to hide me. Is really, really, really sad in the beginning. But I feel like now I've got some skin in the game. I've worked with a lot of companies that I have seen do the actual work.
Good.
Hire DEI, you know, to do work within their companies so that they know how to be better humans.
Yeah.
Just in general. Like
What they should have been doing all along.
We've got to learn.
Yeah.
And that's really admirable. I just want to shout out one company. It's called Sense of Style. And they would do photo shoots. And I would love how they would hire Black makeup artists.
Oh, cool.
You know, and not just because Black makeup artists know how to do Black makeup right, but to give that opportunity to a minority here in Utah is also something that is really amazing to me. And the owner also has a Black child, which showing your kids that you're putting your money where your mouth is so important.
Yeah.
And I think more companies need to see that. But I have seen a shift. I've seen growth, which is way better than I can say in the beginning. And I'm hopeful that Utah will get better. But it definitely starts with having these conversations and with people who don't look like me having these conversations.
Yeah, totally.
And acknowledging, similar to what you did, you know, like acknowledging, I messed up. I haven't done this. And it's true. Like, we're not going to sugarcoat it anymore, right? Like,
totally.
we've got to know, like, we've got to make changes, and not just to have Black people, to have Indigenous and Polynesian, because there are members of not only the LDS Church, but models that deserve
to be in those spaces, totally, and deserve a voice. Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really do. And again, we could talk about this forever. I never want it to seem like you as a woman of color need to only speak on that experience or teach me as a white person or my audience, whomever among them are white. But I do appreciate that you're willing to speak to that. So thank you. I so value your story. I value your presence. And I'm really grateful for your willingness to come and share that with me and with this community. And yeah, there's so many things you spoke to that just illuminated parts of my own experience too, which I think is shows how wise you are, how thoughtful you are. And thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I just hope that whoever sees this gets the opportunity to just listen. I think that I see a lot of your comments, a lot of people that, and I'm just like, are you listening to it or are you projecting? And I think a lot of the times it's the projecting.
Yeah. And
everybody has their own experiences. We get that, right? But listening to others is the only way to learn. I think everybody, even people in the church, I've learned all the time from people in the church. Like, you can still learn from somebody even though you have a differing opinion.
Absolutely.
And different beliefs. So
absolutely.
It was such an honor. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you for being here, and thank you everyone for listening. Bye.
G-I